It's one of the most misunderstood forces in our lives. We often treat it as a red light, a warning, a command, a definitive no. But what if we've been reading the signal all wrong? Fear Doesn't Mean Stop is not a book about becoming fearless. It's about becoming fear-wise. It's about recognizing that fear is not the enemy, avoidance is. Because every time we let fear stop us, we reinforce the belief that we are powerless in the face of discomfort. And the more we reinforce that belief, the smaller our lives become. This book was born out of countless conversations, journal entries, and quiet reflections with people who stood at the edge of something they wanted deeply, a dream, a change, a truth, and didn't know how to move forward. They weren't lacking vision, they were simply afraid, and most of them assumed that was a sign to stop. But here's the truth. Fear is often a sign that you're getting close to something important. It doesn't mean stop. It means pay attention. It means you care. It means you're human. And above all, it means there's something worth moving toward, even if your hands are shaking. In the pages that follow, we will explore the many shades of fear, not just the obvious ones, like fear of failure or rejection, but the sneaky, quiet fears that dress themselves in logic and delay. The fear of being seen. The fear of not being good enough. The fear of success. We'll talk about why we freeze, why we run, and most importantly, how to stay, how to remain rooted in your truth when fear tells you to run away. You'll learn how to listen to fear without obeying it, how to identify its voice without letting it drown out your own, how to develop the courage to act even when you're uncertain. Because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's what you do in the presence of it. This book isn't a blueprint, but a companion. It won't tell you exactly what to do with your life, but it will help you stop quitting on it. It will remind you that your fear is not proof you're weak, it's proof you're alive, growing, and on the verge of something that matters. So if you're ready to stop waiting for fear to go away before you begin, you're in the right place. Because fear doesn't mean stop. It never did. Fear is one of the oldest and most instinctive emotions known to humanity. From the early days when our ancestors heard rustling in the bushes and had to decide whether to fight or flee, to the modern-day anxieties that swirl quietly inside us before a job interview, a vulnerable conversation, or a bold decision, fear has always been there. But here's the critical question. Is fear an enemy to be eliminated? Or a misunderstood friend trying to protect us? Let's begin here. Fear is not inherently bad. It's not broken. It doesn't make you weak or unevolved. In fact, fear has a job, a very old, very reliable job. Its mission is simple: keep you safe. The problem is, fear doesn't know the difference between physical danger and emotional risk. It doesn't distinguish between stepping in front of a moving car and stepping on a stage to speak your truth. To fear, discomfort equals danger, vulnerability equals exposure, and action equals threat. So fear shows up with its protective gear. It tells you to stop. It whispers worst-case scenarios. It plays mental reruns of your past failures or imagined catastrophes. It's not doing this because it hates you. It's doing this because it loves you, but fear's love is primitive. It's like an overprotective parent who would rather keep you small and safe than risk watching you fail and grow. When we begin to see fear not as a villain, but as an ancient, outdated operating system, something powerful happens. We stop fighting it. We start dialoguing with it. We recognize its voice, but we also realize we don't have to follow its instructions. Let's go deeper. The two types of fear. There's what we might call functional fear, the kind that keeps you from walking too close to a cliff, or reminds you to lock your door at night. This is helpful. It's instinctual. It's part of our survival mechanism, and it's doing its job. Then there's psychological fear, the kind that creeps in when you're about to say, "I love you," first, or send your manuscript to a publisher. or apply for a job you think you're underqualified for. This is the fear we're talking about in this book. Psychological fear rarely points to danger. It points to possibility. It shows up at the threshold of growth, which is why the closer you get to a life you truly want, more meaningful, more honest, more expressive, the louder this fear becomes. That fear is not your enemy. It is a signpost. It is saying, "This matters. You're on the edge of something important. You're about to leave the familiar and step into the unknown." What if, instead of shrinking back, we listened? What if we thanked fear for its concern and chose to move forward anyway? What fear tries to protect you from? Let's be honest, most of the time, fear isn't trying to keep you from dying. It's trying to keep you from being embarrassed, from failing, from looking foolish, from disappointing someone, from disappointing yourself. And yet, all of these things, embarrassment, rejection, uncertainty, are not fatal. They're simply human. Think back to the last time fear stopped you. Maybe you didn't speak up in a meeting. Maybe you didn't ask that person out. Maybe you didn't share your work, your art, your voice. Maybe you chose silence when your soul was begging you to speak. In that moment, fear wasn't saying, "You'll die." It was saying, "You might feel something uncomfortable." But the price of comfort is often regret. And regret is far more painful in the long run than a few minutes of awkwardness or a temporary no. When we begin to recognize the cost of obeying fear, we begin to take back control of our lives. Fear as a compass. Here's a radical reframe. What if fear isn't just something to overcome, but something to follow? Let me explain. Many people, when they feel fear, assume it's a red light. They slam the brakes. They retreat. But some of the most fulfilled people in the world have learned to see fear as a green light, not because it makes them comfortable, but because it shows them where they need to grow. Fear, in this sense, becomes a compass. If you're afraid of starting that business, having that conversation, launching that project, maybe that's exactly the direction you need to go. One of the simplest yet most transformative questions you can ask yourself is, what would I do if I weren't afraid? Or even better, what would I do even if I am afraid? This is where real transformation begins. Listening to fear without obeying it. To be clear, we're not suggesting you ignore all fear. We're suggesting you discern it. You listen to it, but you don't live by it. When fear arises, ask yourself, is this fear protecting me from real harm, or just from discomfort? What is the worst that could realistically happen if I move forward? What would my life look like if I let this fear run the show? Sometimes, you'll realize the fear is trying to help, but often, you'll find it's simply trying to keep you small. And you weren't made to live small. You were made to stretch, to risk, to show up, even when your voice shakes, even when your heart pounds, even when your hands tremble. Especially then. Blank, underscore, blank. Fear isn't going anywhere, but that doesn't mean it gets to drive. As we move into the next chapter, we'll explore what happens in those moments when fear grips you so tightly that everything freezes. We'll talk about the internal alarm system that kicks in before you take action, and how to work with it, rather than against it. Because understanding fear is one thing. Facing it in the moment, that's where the real practice begins. Let's keep going. Have you ever been on the edge of doing something important, speaking up, stepping forward, saying yes, and suddenly, everything inside you, locked? Your breath caught. Your chest tightened. Your hands maybe trembled. And something in your body whispered, "Don't. Just stop." That moment? That frozen moment? It's fear pulling the emergency brake. And it happens to every single one of us. This chapter is about understanding that moment, not shaming it, not judging it, but seeing it for what it truly is, a protective response, not a prophecy. That freeze you feel isn't evidence that you're not ready. It's your internal alarm going off. And the alarm doesn't always mean danger. Sometimes, it just means unfamiliar. Let's take a deeper look. The freeze response. Why it happens. When we talk about fear, we often hear about the fight or flight response. But there's another equally powerful reaction that doesn't get as much attention. Freeze. Freezing is a primal, biological response to perceived threat. In the wild, an animal that freezes becomes harder to detect. It's a survival strategy. Stillness can save lives. But in the modern world, our predators have changed. We're not dodging lions. We're navigating interviews, relationships, public speaking, major decisions. And yet, our nervous system doesn't know the difference. That internal freeze still kicks in. When you're about to say something that matters, and your voice locks up. When you're preparing to launch something new, and suddenly you can't move. When the risk is emotional, not physical, but the freeze feels the same. This is not weakness, it's wiring. Your internal alarm system. Imagine this. Inside you is a sensitive, well-meaning security system. It scans your environment for anything it perceives as threatening, criticism, change, uncertainty, and then decides whether to ring the alarm. But here's the catch. Your internal system was shaped long before you became the person you are today. It was influenced by early experiences, by rejection, by failure, by shame, by moments when stepping out resulted in pain. And it learned. It learned that playing small kept you safe. It learned that silence reduced conflict. It learned that not trying meant not failing. So now, when you're about to try again, when you dare to grow, express, or be seen, your inner alarm flares up, not because you're in danger, but because you're doing something new. Something your system hasn't yet confirmed is safe. Recognizing the signs. So how does this internal freeze show up? It might look like procrastination masked as thinking it through. Suddenly feeling exhausted right before taking action. Becoming hyper-focused on irrelevant tasks to avoid the real one. Convincing yourself to wait for the right time. Blanking out when you try to start. The freeze isn't always dramatic. Often, it's subtle. A quiet resistance. A soft whisper that says, "Not now, maybe later, you're not ready." But "not now" turns into never if we don't learn to challenge it. Working with the freeze, not against it. The goal is not to force yourself past fear. That creates more stress, more resistance. The goal is to create enough safety inside you so the freeze begins to melt on its own. Here are a few gentle tools to work with your freeze response. 1. Name it out loud. When you feel the freeze, say it, whisper it. I'm freezing right now. I'm scared because this matters to me. I feel the alarm going off. Naming your experience reduces its power. It shifts you from being inside the fear to witnessing it, and that small shift gives you room to breathe. 2. Breathe into your body. Your body is your greatest ally in fear. When you freeze, the breath often becomes shallow or disappears entirely. Try this. Inhale slowly for 4 counts. Hold for 4 counts. Exhale gently for 6 counts. Repeat a few times. This sends a powerful message to your nervous system. I'm safe. I'm grounded. I can choose. 3. Choose one tiny action. Don't try to leap the mountain. Take a single step. 1 email. 1 sentence. 1 phone call. 1 attempt. The moment you act, No matter how small, you break the freeze. You remind your system, we can do hard things. We can move, even here. 4. Rewire the alarm with repetition. Every time you do the thing, even afraid, you create a new memory for your nervous system. It starts to believe. I spoke, and it was okay. I shared, and I didn't die. I tried, and the world didn't collapse. This is how courage grows, not in the absence of alarms, but through gentle exposure to what once felt dangerous. Your freeze doesn't define you. Let's pause here and remind you of something important. Just because you freeze doesn't mean you're not strong. Just because you hesitate doesn't mean you're not brave. Just because you're scared doesn't mean you're not capable. The freeze is not a reflection of your potential. It's a signal that you're at the edge of growth. So the next time you feel yourself locking up, when your heart races, when your voice shakes, when your limbs refuse to cooperate, don't fight it. Don't force yourself through it. Sit with it. Breathe through it. Speak gently to it. And then, when you're ready, take one small step forward. Because movement, even in the tiniest measure, is how we teach fear that we are not its prisoner. As we move into the next chapter, we'll go deeper. Now that we've learned how to recognize the freeze, the next step is to identify what's behind it. We'll look at the stories, the beliefs, and the inner voices that fuel our fear. Because the truth is, we're not just afraid, we're afraid of something. And when we name the beast, we begin to tame it. Let's take that next step together. Fear isn't just a feeling, it's a reaction, often tied to something deeper than we realize. It's easy to say, I'm afraid, but when we leave it there, fear remains vague, shapeless, and powerful. It controls us not because it's accurate, but because it's unexamined. That's why this chapter matters so much. Because fear loses its grip when we name what it's actually about. When we go beneath the surface, beneath the trembling hands, the anxious mind, the racing heart, and ask ourselves, what exactly am I afraid of here? That's when things begin to shift. The power of naming. There's something ancient about naming. In old stories, heroes could defeat monsters only after learning their names. In myths, demons lost their power when called out. And in real life, emotions soften when they are spoken aloud. Fear works the same way. It thrives in vagueness. It thrives in what ifs and I don't knows. It tells us we're in danger, but won't tell us what exactly is at stake. So when we pause, slow down, and gently ask ourselves to describe the fear, we give shape to the shadow. And what once felt like an overwhelming wave becomes something we can face. Common hidden fears. Let's talk about the fears most people carry, often unknowingly. You might recognize yourself in one or more of these, and that's okay. This isn't about judgment, it's about clarity. It's about seeing yourself with compassion and truth. 1. Fear of failure. Perhaps the most common fear of all, but it's rarely just about failure. It's about what failure means to you. Maybe you fear it will prove you're not good enough. Maybe you believe it will disappoint others. Maybe it's tied to a past experience, one that still stings. But failure, in its purest form, is data, it's feedback, it's redirection. And yet, when fear tells us that failure equals worthlessness, we stay stuck. 2. Fear of judgment. You want to speak, create, share. But then a voice inside says, what will they think? You worry someone will laugh, criticize, talk behind your back. So you stay quiet, you stay safe. And you slowly disappear from your own life. This fear is often rooted in the desire to belong. It's human. We all want acceptance. But when the fear of judgment outweighs your voice, you trade authenticity for approval. And that's too high a cost. 3. Fear of rejection. Whether it's romantic, social, or professional, rejection hurts. But the fear of rejection hurts more. Because it keeps you from trying, from asking, from risking. It whispers, don't put yourself out there. Don't be vulnerable. Don't need anything from anyone. But when you live guarded, you also live disconnected. Because love, true love, requires openness. And yes, sometimes that means you'll be hurt, but it also means you'll be alive. 4. Fear of success. This one surprises people, but it's real. You might fear that success will isolate you, or change you, or place expectations on you that you're not ready for. Sometimes, we stay small not because we can't grow, but because we're scared of what might happen if we do. Who will you become if you rise? Will you be able to handle it? Will people still love you? These questions matter, but they don't have to stop you. 5. Fear of the unknown. You don't know what will happen, and that uncertainty feels terrifying. So you stay in the job you've outgrown. You stay in the routine that numbs you. You stay in the pattern that's predictable, even if it's painful. The unknown can't be controlled, and fear hates that. But growth only lives in the unknown. And peace comes not from knowing the outcome, but from trusting yourself in the process. A gentle practice, the fear inquiry. Let's pause here and try something soft, something simple. The next time you feel fear arise, sit down with a pen, or just your thoughts, and ask. 1. What exactly am I afraid of? 2. What am I afraid will happen if I take this step? 3. What story am I telling myself about this fear? 4. Is that story true, or is it something I've been taught, absorbed, or assumed? Don't rush the answers, let them come honestly. You might be surprised at what you uncover. And whatever you find, meet it with grace. Because fear isn't here to be battled, it's here to be understood. What naming gives you? When you name the fear, you reduce its size, detangle its stories, create a space between stimulus and response. Begin to move from reaction to choice. You go from, I'm scared, so I won't, to, I'm scared, and I might still try. That shift? That quiet, sacred shift? That's where transformation lives. Rewriting the narrative. Once you've named the fear, you can talk to it. You can say, I see you, fear of failure, but trying matters more to me than getting it right. Hello again, fear of judgment, you don't get to make my decisions today. Yes, fear of rejection, this matters enough to risk hearing, no. I know, fear of the unknown, but staying stuck is no longer an option. This is the conversation of a powerful, conscious life. One where fear can sit in the car, but it doesn't get to touch the wheel. Let's bring it together. So, what are you really afraid of? Not just the surface feeling, but the deeper belief underneath it. When you name that fear, you meet yourself, you meet your wounds, your patterns, your stories. And more importantly, you meet your power. Because once fear has a name, it can't hide. It has to step into the light. And you? You don't have to run anymore. You get to choose. In the next chapter, we'll go one step further. Now that you've named your fear, what happens when you're standing face to face with it? Do you turn away? Or do you step forward, shaking, uncertain, but alive? We'll explore how to turn fear into movement. Because naming the beast is only the beginning. Moving anyway. That's where the real alchemy begins. Let's step in. You've named the fear. You've sat with it, examined it, called it out into the open. Now comes the part that most people never reach. The part where you move anyway. This is where paralysis turns into power. Not because you suddenly stop being afraid. Not because the fear vanishes in a puff of logic or bravery. But because you decide, even while afraid, to take a single step forward. That's the art we're talking about today. Movement without certainty. Action in the presence of fear. Progress through discomfort. Because real power isn't in having no fear. It's in choosing your direction despite it. Blank. Underscore, blank. Why fear keeps you frozen. Let's take a moment to understand why fear is so good at keeping us stuck. Fear convinces us that action equals danger. It tells us, if you move, something bad will happen. So we freeze. We wait for clarity. We wait for the fear to go away. But here's the truth. Clarity doesn't come from thinking, it comes from doing. And confidence doesn't come before the action, it comes after. The only way out of fear is through it. And the only way through it is to move. The power of small moves. You don't need a leap. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need a grand gesture. You need one tiny, imperfect step. Think of fear as a fog. It feels thick, endless, hard to see through. But when you move 1 foot forward, the path clears, just a little. Then you move again. And again. And slowly, the fog lifts. One sentence written. One call made. One truth spoken. One door knocked on. Small movements build momentum. And momentum quiets fear. What if you fail? Let's go there, because it's real. What if you try, and you fall? What if you take the risk, and it doesn't work out? Here's the truth most people never tell you. You will fail. Not once. But many times. You will say the wrong thing. You will make a mistake. You will get it wrong. And guess what? You'll survive. More than that, you'll grow. You'll learn. You'll become. Because failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of the path to it. And staying still to avoid failure? That's not safety. That's stagnation. Building a new response to fear. Most of us were never taught how to relate to fear in a healthy way. We were taught to avoid it, numb it, fight it, wait for it to go away. But what if we treated fear like a signal, not a stop sign, but a signpost? A reminder that we're stepping into something meaningful. A guide pointing toward where we need to grow. A companion on the journey. Not a dictator of it. That shift changes everything. The 5-second window. There's a powerful concept that can change the way you respond to fear in real time. The 5-second rule. Here's how it works. The moment you feel the fear creeping in, and you know what needs to be done, count down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and move. Make the call. Open the document. Speak the truth. Press send. Interrupt the hesitation. Don't give your mind time to talk you out of it. Movement beats overthinking, every time. Redefining courage. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to take one step while still feeling it. Sometimes that step is loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's invisible to the world, but revolutionary to your inner life. Courage is saying yes before you feel ready. Saying no when everything in you wants to please. Trying again, even after it didn't work the first time. Loving again, even with a bruised heart. Showing up, even when you don't feel like enough. You don't need to feel fearless. You need to feel the fear, and choose anyway. That's real power. Stories from the quiet bravest. Let me share with you some quiet acts of bravery. Stories not from headlines, but from real lives. A single mom, terrified of failure, enrolls in night school, one class at a time. A man recovering from heartbreak signs up for a dance class alone. To feel joy again. A young writer posts her first article, hands shaking, convinced no one will read it. A retiree, feeling too old to start again, launches a tiny online business with nothing but curiosity. They didn't wait for fear to leave. They moved with it. They let action teach their nervous system. We can survive this. We can do this. So can you. A simple framework for moving through fear. Here's a soft framework you can carry with you. 1. Feel it. Pause. Acknowledge the fear. Don't rush it away. Say, I feel fear. It's okay to feel fear. 2. Name it. Identify the story. I'm afraid I'll fail. I'm afraid I'll be rejected. I'm afraid I'll look foolish. 3. Question it. Ask, is this story true? Is this fear protecting me, or just shrinking me? 4. Decide anyway. Choose a direction based on your values, not your feelings. Let your truth lead, not your terror. 5. Take one step. Just one. Then another. Then another. The fear won't disappear instantly. But it will soften. And more importantly, it will stop running the show. Let's bring it together. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be certain. You just need to be willing. Willing to show up. Willing to try. Willing to move, even if your voice shakes and your knees tremble. This is the quiet revolution. The one that happens not in stadiums, but in hearts. Every time you move despite fear, you tell your inner world, I am no longer living at the mercy of fear. I am building something braver. Step by step. And that's how you go from paralysis to power. In the next chapter, we'll look at how to build courage like a muscle. Because courage isn't a trait you're born with, it's something you can grow. One repetition. One choice. One brave act at a time. Let's build it together. If courage were a light switch, life would be easy. We just flip it on, and instantly feel brave. No doubt, no hesitation, no fear. But courage doesn't work like that. It's not a moment, it's a muscle. And like any muscle, it grows through repetition. Through small, consistent acts. Through lifting just a little more than you did yesterday. So let's set aside the idea of being brave as some grand, dramatic act. Let's talk about what courage really looks like. Showing up again and again, even when it's hard. This chapter is your gentle guide to building that courage muscle. Not by forcing yourself into fear, but by training yourself to stay with it. You don't have to be born brave. Some people look fearless from the outside. They take risks, they speak up, they leap into uncertainty. And we think, They were just born that way. But no one is born brave. Bravery is a learned behavior, built over time. And often, the people who look fearless are simply practiced. They've trained themselves to do scary things. Not without fear, but alongside it. They've faced enough discomfort to know, I won't break, I'll bend, I'll feel, I'll survive. That kind of confidence isn't inherited, it's earned. And so can you. Courage starts small. Let's drop the myth that courage has to be loud or large. Sometimes, courage is saying no when everyone expects a yes. Asking for help when you're used to managing alone. Admitting you don't know. Saying, I was wrong. Leaving something that once defined you. Starting something that might not work. Courage isn't about being fearless. It's about being honest. And often, the most honest thing we can do is take one small step that feels uncomfortable, but true. The practice of micro-bravery. Try this. Think of bravery as a practice, not a performance. And begin with what I call micro-bravery. These are tiny acts that stretch you, just enough to feel it. But not so much that your system shuts down. Examples. Introduce yourself to someone new. Share a piece of writing with one trusted person. Set a boundary in a low-stakes situation. Express an opinion you usually hide. Apply for something, even if you feel underqualified. Each micro-act teaches your brain a new lesson. We did something uncomfortable, and nothing terrible happened. That's how confidence grows, not through elimination of fear, but through repeated evidence that you can feel fear and act anyway. Set your courage reps. Let's take this idea further. If you were training a muscle, you wouldn't go to the gym once and expect lifelong strength. You'd repeat your reps, week after week, increasing gradually. So why would courage be any different? Try this. 1. Pick one area of your life where fear is holding you back. 2. Set a tiny, doable action that stretches you, but doesn't overwhelm. 3. Repeat it daily or weekly, just like a workout. 4. Track how you feel, notice what shifts. 5. Celebrate progress, not perfection. The goal isn't to feel fearless. The goal is to expand your capacity for fear, without shrinking your life around it. Let discomfort be data. Courage training isn't about forcing. It's about noticing. When something feels scary, pause. Ask, what's this discomfort telling me? Is it fear of growth or fear of danger? Is this a stretch or a snap? You'll begin to distinguish between good fear, the kind that comes with growth, and harmful fear, the kind that warns of real misalignment or risk. Over time, you'll build a kind of emotional strength. You'll trust yourself to feel the discomfort, without letting it paralyze you. The role of recovery. Just like with physical training, recovery matters. You can't stretch courage constantly without burnout. You need time to rest, reflect, integrate. After a brave act, big or small, give yourself space. Don't rush into the next challenge. Sit with what you did. Let yourself feel proud. Let your system recalibrate. Because integration is where growth becomes permanent. Don't wait for big moments. Most people wait for a big turning point. They think, one day, I'll finally be ready to be brave. But bravery doesn't begin in big moments. It begins in small, boring ones. In emails, in conversations, in choices. You don't train for the storm during the storm. You train in the calm. And then, when the storm comes, you're ready. Because you've been building that muscle quietly, steadily, faithfully. The courage muscle in action. Let's meet a few ordinary people doing this work, just like you. A college student afraid of public speaking joins a small group to practice. Each week, she says 3 sentences aloud. That's her representative. A man healing from people-pleasing sets a goal. Say 1 honest opinion a day, even if it's uncomfortable. That's his representative. A mother who hasn't drawn since childhood commits to sketching for 5 minutes a day. She posts 1 sketch per week online. That's her representative. A retiree writes the first paragraph of her memoir, every morning, no editing. Just flow. That's her representative. They're not waiting for courage to show up. They're creating it, 1 repetition at a time. And you can too. What you're really building. As you build your courage muscle, you're not just building tolerance for fear. You're building self-trust, the knowledge that you can count on yourself. Resilience, the ability to bounce back from discomfort. Integrity, the alignment between what you value and how you live. Freedom, the power to choose based on truth, not avoidance. This kind of courage becomes who you are. It's no longer about isolated acts. It becomes your default posture in life. Quiet, unshakable, real. Let's bring it together. You don't have to make a dramatic leap today. You don't need to conquer mountains. You need to do 1 brave thing. Then another. Then another. That's how courage is built. In repetition, in intention, in motion. Every time you show up, you prove to yourself, I can be afraid and still be free. That's power. That's practice. That's the muscle we're building. In the next chapter, we'll explore the fear that keeps so many dreams in chains, the fear of failure. We'll talk about what failure really is, and what it's not. We'll redefine failure not as an ending, but as a doorway. Because sometimes, it's the fall that shows you how strong you really are. Let's walk through it together. Failure. The word alone can tighten your chest. It sounds final, harsh, shameful. We grow up hearing it like a verdict. Fail, and you're done. Fail, and you're less than. Fail, and everyone will know. So we fear failure, not just because it's unpleasant, but because we think it defines us. But let's pause here. Let's clear out the noise. Failure is not fatal. Failure is not who you are. Failure is a direction sign, a detour, a teacher, and sometimes, a strange blessing in disguise. This chapter is about rewriting your relationship with failure. Because if fear is holding you back, chances are, it's really the fear of falling. Let's change that. Why we fear failure so deeply. Our fear of failure doesn't begin in adulthood. It starts early. We're praised for getting things right. Grades, achievements, politeness, precision. But we're rarely taught how to handle mistakes. We're not told that failure is part of learning, not the opposite of it. So we begin to link success with self-worth. And when something goes wrong, we don't just think, that failed. We think, I failed, I'm a failure. This identity-based fear is what stops people before they even try. Because if you believe failure is the end of the story, you'll never write past the first chapter. Let's redefine failure. What if failure wasn't a falling off point, but a stepping stone? Here's what failure actually is. Data. It shows you what works and what doesn't. A test of resilience. It reveals your bounce back power. A refinement tool. It forces you to adjust, rethink, and grow. A separator. It weeds out those who want it from those who need it. Some of the most successful, grounded, and brave people you know? They've failed more than most. Not because they're flawed, but because they were willing to try again. The gift inside the fall. Failure often carries a secret gift, but you only find it if you stay long enough to look. It teaches humility. It teaches flexibility. It teaches that the worst-case scenario isn't the end, it's a redirection. Think of the entrepreneur whose first business tanked, but taught them every single thing they needed to succeed on the second try. Or the person rejected from a dream job, only to discover a career that fit them even better. Or the relationship that fell apart, making room for deep healing and new love down the road. When you zoom out far enough, failure rarely feels like an ending. It feels like a necessary pivot, a breakdown before the breakthrough. Let's talk about shame. Often, it's not the failure itself that haunts us. It's the shame that follows. We think people are watching, judging, laughing. But the truth? Most people are too busy wrestling with their own fears. They're not tracking your missteps, they're focused on their own. And the ones who do mock or criticize, they're usually the ones too afraid to try. Let that sink in. The loudest judgment usually comes from the quietest courage. So stop giving weight to voices that haven't earned it. And stop treating shame like a signal to quit. It's just noise. You can outgrow it. How to handle failure when it happens. Let's get practical. Because failure will happen, and that's not a flaw, it's a sign you're moving. Here's how to handle it. 1. Feel it fully. Let yourself grieve, be disappointed, cry, scream, write it out. Pain deserves a place, but not a permanent seat. 2. Name what worked. Not everything failed. Find the pieces that held value. 3. Get curious. What can you learn? What would you do differently next time? 4. Take a break, but not forever. Rest if you must, but don't let one fall end the journey. 5. Re-enter with wisdom. Apply what you've learned. Try again, smarter, softer, stronger. Failure is a teacher with rough methods, but golden lessons. If you listen closely, it always has something to give you. Failure builds resilience. Here's the truth that no one tells you. People who never fail don't grow. They stay safe, small, comfortable. But the ones who fail and rise, they develop something deeper than success. They develop grit. Resilience isn't about never falling, it's about how you rise. It's about saying, "That didn't break me, it shaped me." And eventually, the sting of failure fades. But the strength stays. Your story isn't over. Failure can feel like the end, like the final word. But it's not. It's a comma, a pause, a scene change. And sometimes, it's the exact moment your story starts to matter. Think of any hero you admire. Any artist, innovator, trailblazer. They've all failed, not once, but many times. What separates them isn't luck. It's the willingness to keep going. So ask yourself, what if this failure isn't the ending, but the chapter that turns everything? What if this was the very thing that made you braver, clearer, more aligned? That's not a fantasy, it's how growth happens. Fall forward. You may not be able to avoid every fall, but you can decide how you fall. Don't fall backward into regret. Fall forward, into learning, into discovery, into strength. Let the impact teach you. Let the scrape remind you. I tried, I lived, I moved. And when you rise, because you will, you'll carry not just scars, but wisdom. You'll be different, better, bolder. Not in spite of failure, but because of it. In the next chapter, we'll face another subtle enemy of progress, the comparison trap. We'll talk about how comparing your journey to others can steal your courage, and how to find peace in walking your own path, in your own time. But for now, remember, failure isn't the end. It's just a lesson in progress. And you, my friend, are still rising. Let's start with a quiet truth. We don't always fear that we're not enough. Sometimes, we fear that we're not enough compared to someone else. Comparison. It's the silent thief of peace. It creeps in while you scroll, while you listen, while you're working on your dream. It whispers, "Look at them, you're behind. Why haven't you done that yet? Everyone else is moving faster, better, smoother." And slowly, without even realizing it, your focus shifts. You're no longer running toward your purpose. You're running away from your own worth, chasing someone else's highlight reel. But here's the truth. Your journey isn't late. Your path isn't wrong. And no one else's success means the absence of your own. This chapter is about breaking the habit of comparison and reclaiming the power of walking at your own pace. Why comparison is so tempting and so destructive. We live in a world that makes comparison easy. Social media, resumes, relationship statuses, even health updates. Everywhere you look, someone is posting progress. But what we often forget is this. We're comparing our backstage to someone else's front stage. You're seeing their curated content, not their sleepless nights, not their anxiety, not their silent battles. You're measuring your beginning against their middle. Or worse, your growth against their different goal entirely. Comparison clouds clarity. It makes you question things you were once sure of. It delays your dreams. It tells you that what you have is never enough. But that's not truth, that's illusion. Your lane was built for you. Here's what most people never realize. You don't need to be the fastest, or the flashiest, or the most accomplished by 30. What you need is alignment. To walk in the direction of your own values. To build a life that feels like home, not a performance. Your lane is custom made. And every time you stray into someone else's lane, you risk losing sight of what matters most to you. The more you compare, the more you conform. But the more you focus inward, the more you become whole. You are not behind. You are simply building a life that's real, rooted, and yours. Comparison doesn't motivate, it paralyzes. Many people think comparison pushes them harder. I look at what they've done, it lights a fire in me. But more often than not, that fire burns you, not fuels you. Because instead of being inspired, you become obsessed. Instead of learning, you start doubting. Instead of moving, you freeze, afraid to fall short of an impossible standard. Here's what to remember. You can admire without envying. You can celebrate others without erasing yourself. Your light doesn't dim because someone else is shining. Recognizing the signs you're caught in the trap. Sometimes, We don't even realize we're stuck in comparison. But the signs are subtle. You start second-guessing decisions you were once confident about. You feel anxious after scrolling social media. You rush your progress just to keep up. You stop appreciating what you've already built. These are not signs that you're failing. They're signs that your focus has shifted outward. Comparison redirects your energy from creating to comparing. And in that state, you forget your unique rhythm. You stop asking, "What's right for me?" and start asking, "What are they doing?" How to step back into your own lane. Let's talk about how to reclaim your lane gracefully, intentionally, without guilt. 1. Unfollow or mute without shame. If certain content drains you more than it drives you, step away. You're not obligated to consume everything. 2. Practice daily gratitude for your own journey. Make it a habit to list what's working, what's growing, what's beautiful in your life. 3. Limit the scroll. Replace passive comparison time with active creation time. Write, move, build, connect. 4. Celebrate others out loud, and then refocus. There's enough room for everyone. Say, "Good for them," and then say, "Now back to me." 5. Define success for yourself. What actually matters to you? More money? More freedom? More peace? Let that be your measure, not someone else's trophy. 6. Talk to someone. Comparison thrives in silence. When you voice it, it loses its power. Remember, the goal isn't to be immune to comparison. It's to be so rooted in your own values that comparison can't uproot you. Your timeline is sacred. One of the most damaging lies we've been sold is that success is linear. That there's a set age, a set pace, a checklist. But some people peak at 20, others bloom at 60. Some rise fast and burn out, others take time and last longer. There is no one right way. Your timeline is not late. It's layered, lived in, full of detours and depth. And sometimes, what feels like slow progress is actually deep inner work being done quietly. You don't need to catch up. You need to keep going. The real win: becoming authentically you. Comparison doesn't just rob you of joy. It robs you of you. Your voice, your originality, your perspective. And those are the very things this world needs more of. You're not meant to be a copy. You're not here to fit in someone else's shoes. You're here to fill your own space, completely, unapologetically. So let others run their races. Cheer them on, if you like. But don't leave your path to chase theirs. You're not late, you're not lost. You're becoming, in your own way, on your own time. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. Let that sink in for a moment. You're not behind. You're not too slow. You're not forgotten. You are exactly where you need to be, learning what you need to learn. Growing in ways no one can see, preparing for things you can't yet imagine. And when your moment comes, because it will, it'll be right on time. Not compared to anyone else, but exactly right for you. Perfection is a beautiful lie. It tells us, once you're ready, then you can start. Once everything's in place, then you'll be enough. Once you're confident, then you can show up. But here's the truth. If you wait to be perfect, you'll wait forever. Progress doesn't come from polish. It comes from presence. From the shaky voices, the trembling hands, the uncertain first steps. This chapter is about honoring the messy middle. where things aren't quite figured out, where you doubt yourself, where nothing looks like the highlight reel, and showing up anyway. Because real courage is not about being flawless. It's about being willing. Why perfection is a trap? Let's get honest. Perfection is not about high standards. It's about fear. Fear of being judged. Fear of failing publicly. Fear of not being good enough. And so we hide behind preparation. We rehearse, revise, rework. We wait for the right time, the right version of ourselves. But the more we wait to be perfect, the more life passes us by. Think of every dream you've paused, every idea you shelved, every risk you didn't take. Not because you didn't care, but because you were afraid of not getting it right. And in the process, you robbed yourself of the very thing that leads to growth, doing it anyway. The power of imperfect action. Most people think confidence comes before action. But that's backwards. Confidence comes from doing things while still uncertain. From showing up, even when your voice shakes. From saying yes, even when you feel unqualified. From trying, failing, learning, and trying again. Action breeds clarity. Action builds resilience. Action teaches you what planning alone never can. Perfection delays that action. It tells you to keep fixing before starting. But sometimes, the best thing you can do is take the next step, flawed but faithful. No one started with it all together. Behind every author, entrepreneur, artist, or speaker you admire, there's a beginning filled with doubt, missteps, and learning curves. They didn't wait to be amazing. They just started. And because they started, they got better. They grew. They refined. You don't need to be there yet. You just need to be here. Committed, honest, and open to evolving. Your messy middle is not a problem. It's proof that you're in motion. Showing up means being seen, and that's brave. There's nothing easy about showing up when you're still figuring things out. It means people might misunderstand you. They might judge what's still forming. They might not get the vision you haven't yet fully built. But here's the thing. Being seen in process is part of the process. You can't be known for what you don't show. You can't be loved for what you always hide. You can't be proud of what you never dared to begin. Let people witness your becoming. Not your perfection. Your becoming. Because the more you show up imperfectly, the more you give others permission to do the same. Embrace the middle. It's where the real work happens. Everyone loves the start, the spark, the inspiration. And everyone loves the finish, the triumph, the reward. But the middle? That's where the doubt creeps in. That's where the excitement fades. That's where quitting feels easier than continuing. The middle is quiet, uncelebrated. But it's also where you grow the most. You learn how to persist without applause. How to trust without proof. How to believe without guarantees. Don't rush past the middle. Live there. Let it teach you patience, grit, humility, and hope. You're not behind. You're building. Redefining what it means to do it right. Here's a radical thought. Doing it right doesn't mean doing it perfectly. It means doing it honestly. With care. With presence. With your whole, imperfect heart. When you release the need to be flawless, you make space for authenticity. For real connection. For joy in the doing, not just the result. The people who change lives aren't always the most polished. They're the ones who dare to be real. So do it messy. Do it scared. Do it before you're fully ready. That's not weakness. That's bravery. Practice showing up imperfectly every day. Here are small ways you can practice this kind of courage. 1. Speak up when you're unsure. Your voice still matters, even if it shakes. 2. Post that project, even if it's not your best. Growth comes from sharing, not hiding. 3. Ask for help. You don't need to know everything. Asking is strength. 4. Start before you're confident. Confidence is built after the starting line, not before it. 5. Celebrate your effort, not just your outcome. Every small act of courage deserves recognition. Remember, imperfect action is still action. And that's what moves you forward. You're allowed to be a work in progress. You're not here to be a polished product. You're here to be a living story. Some chapters will be smooth. Others will be scribbled, rewritten, full of plot twists. That's okay. The beauty of your story lies in the fact that it's real. It's alive. It's unfolding. You don't need to impress. You don't need to prove. You just need to show up. Messy, honest, brave. And when you do, you'll realize that was enough all along. There comes a moment in every journey when the excitement fades, the progress slows, and the weight feels heavier than ever before. You wonder, is this worth it? Am I strong enough to keep going? Maybe I'm just not cut out for this. But here's the quiet truth that often goes unsaid. You don't always need to push harder. Sometimes, you just need to pause, without letting go. This chapter is for the weary. For the ones who feel like quitting. For those standing at the edge, not because they don't care, but because they're tired. And if that's you, let's talk about the difference between giving up and resting. Exhaustion feels like failure, but it's not. It's easy to mistake fatigue for failure. You tell yourself, if I were stronger, this wouldn't be so hard. If I really wanted it, I wouldn't feel this way. If I were meant for this, I wouldn't be so exhausted. But you're human, not a machine. You can be deeply passionate and still burned out. You can care immensely and still crave rest. Feeling tired doesn't mean you're weak. It means you've been strong for a long time. And now, your body, your mind, your heart, they're asking for kindness. Rest is not a detour, it's part of the journey. You've been taught to glorify the grind, to equate hustle with worth, to believe that stopping is losing. But nature tells a different story. Trees shed their leaves. The ocean ebbs and flows. Even the sun sets every single day. Rest is not retreat. Rest is renewal. When you pause, you don't lose momentum. You restore it. You realign with your purpose. You reconnect with your strength. You remind yourself why you began in the first place. The quiet strength of letting yourself breathe. There's strength in pushing through pain. But there's also strength in pausing with care. In saying, I need a moment. I'm not okay right now, and that's allowed. I haven't quit, I'm just breathing. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is to not force yourself through the storm, but to sit still and wait for the sky to clear. That's not giving up. That's choosing gentle resilience over reckless endurance. Listen to the voice beneath the noise. In the noise of your doubts, there is a quieter voice whispering underneath. You're allowed to rest. You don't need to earn it. You're allowed to take up space, even when you're not producing. When everything screams, keep going. Pause and ask yourself, what am I really feeling? What do I need right now? Am I moving forward, or am I running on empty? You'll often find the courage to keep going. Not by doing more, but by listening more deeply. The world doesn't need you burnt out. You're not here to burn the candle at both ends, just to prove you're serious. You're not here to exhaust yourself into achievement. You're here to live, to feel this life, to offer your light, not your ashes. When you care for your energy, your peace, your boundaries, you protect the part of you the world needs most. Your aliveness. How to rest without quitting. Here are a few gentle practices to help you stay in the game, without breaking yourself in the process. 1. Step back, not away. Take a break from the intensity, but keep the dream within reach. 2. Create space for silence. Sit without the need to solve anything. Let stillness refill your spirit. 3. Set micro goals. If the big picture overwhelms you, focus on just the next breath, the next step, the next minute. 4. Do something that brings you joy. Creativity and lightness often return through play, not pressure. 5. Let someone in. You don't have to carry this alone. Talk to someone. Share the weight. 6. Remember why you started. Revisit the fire that lit the first spark. It's still there, just quiet beneath the smoke. There is no shame in slowing down. You're not lazy. You're not failing. You're healing. Slowing down doesn't mean you're behind. It means you're honoring the journey. Everyone moves at different rhythms. And sometimes, the strongest souls are the ones who know when to pull back and gather their strength. You're still in this. You haven't let go. You're simply refueling. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. You are allowed to begin again, gently. Maybe you've paused for a while. Maybe the dream has dust on it. Maybe you lost the rhythm. That's okay. You can begin again. With softness, with slowness, with grace. You don't need to leap. You just need to lean. One breath. One act of courage. One quiet yes to yourself. Fear might still be there. But now, so is rest. So is strength. So is your next step. Take a deep breath. You've made it to the end of this journey. But the truth is, this isn't the end at all. It's a beginning. Because every step you've taken, through doubt, through fear, through exhaustion, has not only moved you forward, but also transformed who you are. This chapter is not about tying a neat bow on everything you've been through. It's about honoring it, sitting with it, and realizing you've been brave all along. Fear didn't leave, but you learned to walk with it. Maybe fear still lingers. That's okay. It was never about eliminating fear completely. It was about no longer letting it drive your decisions. About not handing it the keys to your life. About choosing your voice over its echo. You learn to take action without perfect confidence. Speak up when your heart pounded. Start again when the past tried to hold you back. Say yes to growth, even when it was uncomfortable. And that is courage. Your growth was never loud. Growth isn't always some massive leap or loud achievement. Sometimes it's getting out of bed when everything in you wants to hide. Saying no to something that used to control you. Letting yourself cry, instead of pretending you're fine. Asking for help, for the first time. You might not have noticed these things. But they're there. Like quiet victories stitched into your soul. This isn't just self-help. This is self-healing. And you've done it. Let go of the old you with love. You may feel tempted to look back at who you used to be. With judgment, with shame, with regret. But don't. That version of you, scared, unsure, frozen. They weren't weak. They were surviving. They were doing the best they could with what they knew. Now, you know more. You've seen more. You've become more. So release them gently. Not with resentment, but with gratitude. Because they got you here. And now, you carry all of that strength forward. A life beyond fear is a life led by intention. What does it mean to live beyond fear? It doesn't mean you never tremble again. It means you decide how you show up. You show up with softness, not armor. You move with curiosity, not control. You embrace your messiness, not mask it. You chase dreams that make your hands shake, but your heart soar. This kind of life doesn't happen by accident. It's chosen, over and over again. Not because it's easy, but because it's true. And now, you're living it. You're not waiting anymore, you're creating. You don't have to wait to be fearless, to feel ready, to be perfect, to get permission. You're not waiting anymore. You are creating a life that reflects your inner truth, a legacy built on resilience, a path paved by presence, not panic, a version of you that feels real, not just acceptable. Every time you say yes to your becoming, you make it easier for someone else to do the same. You're not just healing yourself. You're lighting the way. Let this be the reminder you carry with you. If there's one thing this book hopes to leave with you, let it be this. Fear doesn't mean stop. Fear means something matters. Fear means you're stretching. Fear means you're alive. So walk with it. Breathe through it. And keep going. Not blindly. Not perfectly. But bravely. You are capable. You are worthy. You are needed. And you're not at the end of the road. You're at the beginning of something bigger. Something real. Something bold. Something yours. Your next chapter is yours to write. This final chapter? It's just the pause before the pen returns to your hand. What story will you write from here? Whatever it is, make it honest. Make it yours. And don't let fear stop you. Because now you know. You don't need to wait to be fearless. You only need to keep choosing forward. Thank you for walking this journey. Keep walking. Keep becoming. And remember, fear doesn't mean stop. It just means you're still becoming someone extraordinary.